Welcome to Daily Armor. Today we're going to be in the book of Exodus, chapter number 1, looking at the whole chapter. This morning I was thinking about being under a heavy load when it's not really just one thing, but it's this and this and this and this and this, and you feel like everything is piling up. It is, just burden after burden after burden after burden. And I was just thinking about, Lord, show me some scripture that would, be a help. And this may not help you, but it really did help me. Todd is under a heavy load right now, just a lot of irons in different piles going on. There's several people that I know that are under a tremendously heavy load, battling physical problems, battling disease and distresses and major things. And I just think about them as well. Think about myself as far as, just trying to keep everything going and it all straight, and without blowing my mind up. Sometimes we feel like it's just gonna go, but the Lord he's got help. He's going to sometimes when we think about those heavy burdens, and sometimes people even say, Lord, why are you allowing this? He's got a plan, he's got a purpose. He's not the cause of everything bad in life. I know some people want to blame. They don't want to give God praise for the good, but they sure do want to blame God for the bad. And it just simply doesn't work that way. There is evil among us. There is bad among us. Our earth is cursed. There's so much going on. The enemy is definitely at work. And I just wanted you to notice the enemy here. And really the enemy of fear, and how fear can be such a problem and it can cause such a problem. But let's look at Exodus number 1. I'm going to read the whole chapter, and then I'm just going to go out and point out real quick. This won't be a lengthy devotion, but we just want to point out real quick a few verses to bring your attention to where the true enemy is, and the true enemy is fear. I wanted to notice in verse number 1, it says, Now these are the names of the children of Israel which came into Egypt. Every man in his household came with Jacob: Reuben, Simeon, Levi, and Judah, Issachar, Zebulun, Benjamin, Dan, Naphtali, Gad, and Asher. And all the souls that came out of the loins of Jacob were 70 souls, for Joseph was in Egypt already. This is when the famine came, and Jacob had sent some of his sons. He said, I heard there's food in Egypt, go purchase us some. And end up they were purchasing it from their brother, who they didn't realize had, because they had sold him into slavery. Joseph was that God had his hand on him the whole time. Joseph carried heavy burdens for a very, very, very long time, and then God put him in a place of position in order to help Jacob's family, in order to preserve, in order to keep his promises that God will always keep. He will always keep his side. And it says in verse number 6, and I want you to, this is went on, we're way past that. They all stayed in Egypt with Joseph because that's, he was able to care for them throughout the rest of the famine. And then through the course of time, they've stayed. And Joseph died in verse number 6. And Joseph died, and all his brethren, and all that generation. And the children of Israel were fruitful and increasing. Think about this, is many, many years later. We're talking many years later. They're in Egypt. They're not supposed to remain in Egypt. They're going to be getting out, but they needed a little help. And the children of Israel were fruitful and increased abundantly and multiplied and waxed exceeding mighty, and the land was filled with them. So then they have flourished here in the land of Egypt. And then fear's gonna come over the next king. Let's look at verse number 8. Now there arose up a new king over Egypt, which knew not Joseph. He didn't know anything about these people. He just is noticing, hey, they're in our land and they're not Egyptians. And it caused him to fear. He was looking around at who can give him trouble. He's thinking about all the what ifs. Fear has set in. this is a king, and he's prideful, and he's vengeful, and he's worried. And he's worried. He's fearful. A frightened man or woman is a dangerous person to themselves and to everybody else as well. And we're going to see that here. And there rose up a new king over Egypt, which knew not Joseph. And he said unto his people, behold, the people of the children of Israel are more and mightier than we. He's saying they are outnumbering us. And this is going to pose me a problem. Therefore, I'm going to have to figure out how to take care of this problem. And he says, come on, let us deal wisely with them, lest they multiply, and it come to pass that when there falleth out any war, they join also unto our enemies and fight against us, and so get them up out of the land. Verse number 11, therefore they did set over them taskmasters to afflict them with their burdens. I know the enemy has set out to afflict, and the enemy is fearful, and the enemy is afraid. And when it looks like that there's more of us than there is of them, they're going to do things to afflict us. They're going to set out to try to put so many burdens on us and to distract us with this problem and that problem and that problem and that problem. And the enemy has the ability to be a big old bully. But really, the enemy is scared. The enemy is scared of me, and the enemy is scared of you. Why? Because we have the power of God on our side. Because we are his. We belong to him. And the enemy is jealous, and the enemy is worried, and the enemy is fearful. And so sometimes we're under these heavy loads and these heavy burdens because somebody is afraid. Therefore they did set over them taskmasters to afflict them with their burdens. And they built for Pharaoh treasure cities, Pithom and Ramesses. But the more they afflicted them, the more they multiplied and grew. And they were grieved because of the children of Israel. So the more that we're afflicted, the more that we're burdened, the stronger we become. God uses it to make us stronger and better, not bitter and weaker. When you're going through something hard and something difficult, it's just like when you are taking your body and you are choosing to push it past the point. You are pushing those muscles. You are pushing yourself past the point that you think you can handle. And what's happening? You're getting stronger. You're getting better. Sometimes the pressure is on, but it's not making us weaker. It's making us stronger. Look at what they said. The enemy was grieved because it wasn't working. But the more they afflicted them, the more they multiplied and grew. And they were grieved because of the children of Israel. And the Egyptians made the children of Israel to serve with rigor. So they made it harder. And they made their lives bitter with hard bondage in mortar and in brick and in all manner of service in the field. They were under a heavy, tremendous load physically. Physically and mentally, and all this pressure. They were like, if we can just work them to death, they won't even have time to, they won't even want to make more children. They won't even want to have more in their family. That would too heavy burden. They just thought the more they pushed them. But yet it made them stronger. In mortar and in brick and in all manner of service in the field, and all their service wherein they made them serve was with rigor. So then the enemy takes to stronger measures. And they think if they can start killing us, if they can resort to death, that will be the end of it. God is still in control. And the king of Egypt spake to the Hebrew midwives, of which the name of the one was Shiphrah, and the name of the other was Puah. And he said, when ye do the office of a midwife to the Hebrew women, and see them upon the stools, if it be a son, then ye shall kill him. But if it be a daughter, then she shall live. He's like, if we can just kill off all the men. Isn't that what's happened in our society today? If we can just kill all these children, if we can kill all the men, and then they won't be able to multiply. We won't, it won't grow. They won't multiply. They won't grow and be a threat. But verse number 17, the midwives feared God. In other words, they feared God more than they feared Pharaoh, more than they wanted whatever payment maybe was going to be rendered, whatever Pharaoh had to offer, whether it be good or whether it be bad. They feared God more. The midwives feared God more. But the midwives feared God and did not as the king of Egypt commanded them, but saved the children alive. They weren't going to kill these babies. Why? Because God said, thou shalt not commit murder. He said, thou shalt not kill. They feared God more than they feared Pharaoh. And that's what we have to do. We have to fear God more than the enemy. Fear the Lord more than the enemy, more than the enticements, more than the rewards that can be here on earth, which are they're going to go to dust. It's not going to mean anything. We need to fear and respect the Lord above all, even ourselves, even what we want, even those fears that we have. We need to fear the Lord more. I need to take my fear and say, you know what? The Lord has told me not to be afraid. Lord, I know I'm being fearful in this manner. I know I'm trying to respond with fear, but Lord, I don't want to. I am choosing not to. I am choosing what you say over what is welling up inside of me. Whether it be desire, whether it be some kind of fear, I want to choose God. And that's what the midwives did here. They chose the Lord. They feared him above all. And the king of Egypt called for the midwives and said unto them, why have ye done this thing, and have saved the men children alive? And the midwives said unto Pharaoh, because the Hebrew women are not as the Egyptian women, for they are lively, and are delivered ere the midwives come in unto them. They're like, they're already delivered before we get in there. They're like, oh, the Hebrew, they're a little bit more lively. They're a little stronger. They're a little stronger than the Egyptian women. They don't wait for somebody to come help them. They're going to go ahead and deliver. And they're done delivered before we get, they're done holding that little baby boy before we can even get in there to help them. Verse number 20. Therefore God dealt with the midwives, and the people multiplied and waxed very mighty. God dealt well. God took care of the midwives. And it came to pass, because the midwives feared God, that he made them houses. They feared the Lord, and the Lord blessed them. And even though they weren't doing what Pharaoh asked them to do, they weren't willing to do it. They disobeyed the enemy. They disobeyed the man here on earth to obey the Father in heaven. And he dealt well with them. And it came to pass, because the midwives feared God, that he made them houses. And Pharaoh charged all his people, saying, every son that is born ye shall cast into the river. So then he makes a decree. You have to do it yourself. I'm going to force you to take care of your own men children. You're going to kill them. You're going to toss them into the river, into the Nile, in there with the crocodiles and the alligators and the snake, whatever is in there. You're going to toss them in there. And it's every son that is born ye shall cast into the river, and every daughter ye shall save alive. And they cast that out. That was the order to the people. So they were making their burdens heavy and heavier and heavier. And I'm not going to get on into chapter number 2. We see that Moses was put into the river, but he was put into like a little ark, and God preserved him and saved him, and he chose him to be the one to lead the people out. And this was going to go on for a while longer. This was going to be a heavy burden they were going to have to put up with for a while longer, but God had a plan. And no matter what the burden is that I'm under, that my husband's under, that my friends are under, that my loved ones are under, that strangers that I don't even know, that I just hear about, no matter what we're under, God has a plan, and he knows what he's doing, and he's making us stronger, and stronger so that we can handle the journey that's going to be set before us. We can handle the task that's going to be set before us. It's going to make us stronger. It's going to be like that good workout that you give your body where you're like, okay, and the coach is out there and he's like, okay, give me 10 reps. And you do the 10, you're like, oh, that 10th is, oh, that one is so hard. And he's like, okay, go ahead and give me 2 more. And you're like, but I can't. And my muscles are quivering and I can't. But then you do. And you make those muscles quiver till they can't go no more. And he's like, that is going to help those muscles. That is what's going to make you stronger. Pushing you past what you think you're able to do is going to make you stronger. Stronger in the Lord. Not stronger in yourself. Not stronger than even the enemy. But stronger in the Lord because he can take care of that enemy. Thank you for joining me. I look forward to seeing you again soon.